Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We are considering the Chaturvyuhas mentioned in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Heyam, Heya Hetu, Hanam, Hanopayaha. Heyam is Dukkham. And then in the last session, we came to a point where we were told that Dukkham is nothing but samsarikata, pra-pancikata, mundanity, worldly life. So, in Vijnana Bhikshu's commentary, we come across wonderful prima facie view where the question is put that you are trying to avoid or mentioning the measures to avoid the sorrows, and you seem to be uprooting the very mundanity which is our life, pra-panca, samsara. So you are trying to uproot the very samsaram, declaring that samsara itself is Heyam. So Vijnana Bhikshu there mentions that it is from the point of view of this yogi, it is not for you and me. We will see, look at what is avoidable for us. But for a yogi, the very pra-pancikata, samsara, it is dukkha bahulyam. You find that it is preponderance of sorrow there. And because of dukkha bahulyam, it is declared to be Heyam. But we should bear in mind that this is of a hierarchy of a Madhyama dhikari yogi who, on his plane of consciousness, is in a position to understand what is essentially sukham and what is essentially dukkham. We are all not seeking essential pleasure and essential delight and essential happiness. We just want happiness that is happiness to us. We don't want the happiness of someone on the high pedestal. We want our happiness. And we want our sorrow to go away. But what is being discussed here is the sorrow, essential sorrow, which is realized by a yogi on that hierarchy of being a Madhyama dhikari, that is being mentioned. So, we will not be getting a solution to our problem which we are trying to avoid. What is Heyam for us? What is Heyam for us is the dukkham for us, that dukkham which is dukkham for us, we want to avoid it. And not the dukkham for one on that high pedestal of consciousness. So therefore, when it is mentioned that samsara itself is Heyam, because samsara is with sorrow profusion from the point of view of a yogi, Madhyama dhikari. So we should not lose sight of this. Because for us actually, we have wonderful advice. We get advice from the saints who tell us that we must try to get paramartha in our pra-panca. So beautiful contribution has come from the saints of our land, where we are told that we cannot be escaping this mundanity, samsara, pra-panca, and therefore we have our paramartha in pra-panca itself. This beautiful advice has come from the saints. So we should not confuse between Grahastha ashram, which is the supreme most ashrama. Grahastha dharma, Grahastha ashrama is the supreme most because it sustains the other three. Brahmacharya ashram, Vanaprastha ashram, Sannyasa ashram is sustained by Grahastha ashram, and therefore Grahastha ashram has been hailed. So we make a confusion between Grahastha ashram and samsara. Our idea of samsara is to have a family. That is the problem. When it is said here that samsaram is dukkham or heyam, pra-pancam is dukkham and heyam, it is not the pra-panca in our idea of it or samsara of our idea of it. Because we cannot be without samsara and pra-panca. We have taken birth in samsara and pra-panca, and therefore we are going to live, we are going to die in samsara and pra-panca. But our meaning of samsara and pra-panca is to have family life. But what is mentioned here, the samsara and pra-panca, is not that family life. The problem is that our concept of samsara is one, and therefore we are not accepting this. It is not palatable for us to hear that samsara itself is heyam. Because our idea and notion of samsara is limited and it is improper if we want to precisely consider it. Samsarati iti samsaraha. It is flow, while our samsara is to have family around us. Our family and the family within which we are, that is samsara for us. This is unfortunately a wrong meaning technically. So also pra-pancam. What is our concept of pra-panca? It is mundanity. Samsara is mundanity. So we are confusing between our idea of samsara and pra-panca and idea of samsara pra-panca mentioned in the text here or mentioned in the darshanam here, when Vijnana Bhikshu says that samsaram itself is heyam. The idea, notion, concept of samsara is different than samsara that we have in our minds. This is the problem. So, pra-pancam. What is this pra-pancam? Pra-panca. So there is something five, pancha, five, and then pra, a prefix, which comes to mention exaltation of five. Now we are engulfed of five, these five. We are made up of these five. We are constituted by these five. All that around us is of five. And it is something that we cannot be escaping the five. That is the five here. What is that five? The five means camaha bhutas. This is a great word in Sanskrit and in vernacular. Mahabhutas. Literally, it means great ghosts. Bhuta also means ghost. And here it comes as ghost. When the reference is to Prithvi, Ap, Tej, Vayu, Akash, Pancha Mahabhutas. So we are made up of it. Our material is of Pancha Mahabhutas. And what is around us is all materially Pancha Mahabhutas. We can't escape Pancha Mahabhutas. Like we cannot be escaping solar energy by being on this planet. We cannot escape the solar energy by being in solar system. not even for a moment, that we can escape solar energy forms by being in a solar system, and more particularly on being Earth, on this planet. Everything is solar. Every manifestation is solar here. It is out of solar energy that we are, whatever we are having around and whatever we ourselves are made up of. Materially, it is all solar. So, Panchama Bhutas are such things that they are infesting entire universe, not only on the planet, but outside the planet, not only in the solar system, but outside the solar system, and entire universe and all the universes. Aneka Koti Brahmanda. It is all infested by Panchama Bhutas. Panchama Bhutas, 5 great ghosts. They are ghosts because they are invisible. And although being invisible, they are playing all havoc here. So like a ghost is not visible, but it plays havoc around us. So these Panchamahabhutas are playing havoc. They are not visible, but all they do is visible. This is the case of ghost. The ghost is not visible, but all that the ghost does is visible. And that is why we are petrified about ghosts. We are dreaded of ghosts, and we should be dreaded of ghosts because they are not visible, but what they do becomes visible. So, Pra-panca. Pra-panca means it is of these 5 elements. From all causes to effects, it is 5 elements. We need to go to metaphysical causes on deeper plane to really go past and go beyond the Panchamahabhutas. Then you get Pancham Tanmatras, and then you get Ahankar Tattva, then you get Buddhi Tattva, Mahat Tattva, then you get Pradhana Tattva in Sankhya. Anyway, the point is, Pra-pancam, which is mentioned here, is in that sense. It is not the Pra-panca that we take to mean in our common man's parlance. Samsara, Pra-panca, our family life. So that's a very limited meaning that we have taken. When it is said here that Pra-panca itself is Heyam, it is that Pra-panca, not this Pra-panca. And as a matter of fact, this Pra-panca is the one in which we have to trace the Paramartha. We are not supposed to escape this Pra-panca, that is our idea of Pra-panca. We have to trace Paramartha in this, and this advice comes to us from saints. Now Patanjali here is not advising us. This is a precept for Madhyama dhikari, so we should not lose sight of this. Then the connotations will be changing for the words. So, what is suggested in the Vijnani Bhikshu's presentation of prima facie and siddhanta is not eradication of this Pra-panca. That is our idea of Pra-panca. Because this is Grahastha ashram, and Grahastha ashram is all sustaining ashrama and most hailed ashrama out of the 4 ashramas. And it is here that we have to learn, imbibe, inculcate paramarthika values. So this confusion should not be there. When Pra-panca is said to be Heyam, or Samsara is said to be Heyam, it is not Samsara of our idea. We are supposed to go for Samsara, create Samsara, have Samsara, be in Samsara. That is our family life. But suppose somebody is without a family life, a celibate, uh, remain in single, it doesn't that he mean that he has no samsara. Even if somebody is single, somebody has remained unmarried, somebody is said to be brahmacharya in our idea of it, that not getting married. Not getting married means brahmacharya, but that is not the meaning of brahmacharya. But that is what we mean. If somebody is not married, we say he is brahmachari. But that's not the meaning of being brahmachari. It is to be in Brahma. It is to live in Brahma, move in Brahma, stay in Brahma, live in Brahma, engulfed by Brahman. That is brahmacharya anyway. But here, point is not just getting married, remaining single doesn't mean that somebody is not in samsara. So therefore there is wonderful mention by a mystic saint who describes something as loin cloth of a brahmachari. Brahmachari's langoti. Now, because of langoti, he will have to have so many things around him. Because this brahmachari who is so unworldly that he just remains on loin cloth. But then it so happens that his loin cloth is eaten up by a rat, a mouse or a rat. So he says, now if I have to live on loin cloth and nothing else, and if my loin cloth is unsafe here because there are rats and mice around and they might eat it away, so he says, now I must maintain a cat so that there would be no mouse around, no rat around, so that my loin cloth will be safe. So he procures a cat. And he feels, now I am safe, that my loin cloth will not be consumed, eaten away by rats and by mouse. But then when the cat is maintained, he realizes that now the cat needs milk, and therefore now I have to have a cow. So he procures a cow. So the cat is taken care of, and then the cat would take care of mouse or rat, and so that loincloth will be saved. Now when the cow is procured, he realizes that the cows need to be grazing. So I will have to procure a field and grow grass there, so that with the green grass in my field, the cow will be fed. If the cow is fed, then the cow will give milk, and if the cow gives milk, the cat will be having its food, and when the cat is there, the rats won't be there, and therefore my loincloth will be intact. So he has to procure a field, so piece of land, and then grow some green grass in it. But then he realizes that now I will have to take care of the field, so there has to be fencing. Then somebody has to take care of the field. So he thinks, now I will have to have someone who will take care of the field, and so therefore thinks I should get married. So one who intended to stay without marriage and stay single ultimately found no resort but to get married. So this is what happens. So those who are single, that doesn't mean they are free from samsaram. They have their own samsaram. The world of objects are enticing. There are so many needs, necessities, essentials, and therefore there is that mundanity for even the single person. Samsara doesn't leave. Pra-panca doesn't leave. It doesn't leave us. Samsara doesn't leave us. So the point is, this samsara is not being mentioned. But then the gravity of mundanity and the gravity of our own psyche, then the tendencies embedded in it, which are going to give calls for so many things. Like in the story we just now heard, one who wanted to just live on a loincloth and have a life of ascetic felt that the loincloth needs to be preserved, maintained, and therefore to be free from mice and rats, procured a cat, then procured a cow, and then procured a field, and then had a wife and family, and people employed there. So, this is the mundanity that is spoken of. So, where is the mundanity? The mundanity is in our psyche and consciousness, not around. Even if there is nothing around you, don't think that you are an ascetic. You have to overcome that everything which is within you, that maya within you. If that is not there, then you are free. So really, prapanca and samsara is not that which is around you, but which is inside you. So what is inside you, which is become samsara and prapanca? Your endless desires, endless wants. Then the thought for procuring all that, satisfying your desires. To satisfy the desires, you have to procure the objects of desires. To procure the objects of desire, you have to have means to procure them. To have the means to procure them, you'll have to have some economic activity. And this is called samsara, which is within us. The vasanas, the tendencies, they won't keep you quiet. And therefore, the prapanca is not what is around you, samsara is not what is around you, the mundanity that we speak about is not around you, but it is within you. You need to overcome that and not kick the mundanity out, which is around you. Even if you retire into forest and in seclusion on the mountain tops, the world of objects is within your heart. World of objects is within your mind. And that's why it will be keeping you engaged. And where it keeps you engaged is called prapanca. So that, is it not Heyam? The clamor of desires, clamor of tendencies, clamor of vasanas, that is being referred to as samsara and prapanca, and not the things around you. Not the animate, inanimate things around you. Not the sthavara, jangama around you. Not the movable, immovable estate and property around you. But it is the desire and vasana within you. That is really the prapancam. Not what is around you, made up of things and objects, allurements, attachments. That is not being spoken of here. The prapanca is within the heart. Now, is it not avoidable? It is avoidable. But then what is therefore meant is not banishing mundanity which is around you, but banishing mundanity within you. So what is being mentioned is not banishing the mundanity, the prapanca, the samsara which is engulfing you and which is all around you, but all that prapanca in the form of vasanas and tendencies within you. And therefore, there is nothing wrong in saying that that is Heyam, avoidable. So, it sums up to asmita, it sums up to kleshas. The prapanca is in our kleshas, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, which we have discussed earlier. And the Panchaparva kleshas are essentially only avidya. And therefore avidya is prapancam. Not the pra-pancam that having parents, having children, having siblings, having uncles and aunties and cousins, etc., etc. Having friends and relatives, that is not the pra-panca. It is very much within. That is being referred to. Now what is all that? It is all avidya. So avidya, we are convinced that it is avoidable. It is highly avoidable. There is no second opinion about its being avoidable. Avidya being avoidable. There is no second opinion now. That's absolute reality. That avidya is something which has to be banished. At least mitigated, at least weakened, attenuated, gradually, tapered and tapered and tapered and tapered, and then going into thin air. And there should be no doubt about it. So what is referred to by saying prapancam is heyam, samsaram is heyam, this is the one within oneself, in the form of avidya. Because human psyche is such that even if the objects are not around, it will fabricate mentally and try to delve into those objects mentally. You don't need objects outside you. Even if they are not outside you, you can fabricate them from your mind, and this is what we create a world within us. So world within us is something from which we must escape. We are not suggested to escape from the world around us. The world within us. So samsara and prapanca is within us. And that is being suggested that we must escape it. And to escape it, how do we do it? On our plane, we live in this prapanca, which is in our sense prapanca, samsara in our sense, and the saints give beautiful advice for you and me. I repeat, this advice is not for you and me that Patanjali is mentioning, because he specifically mentions this measure means for kriya yogi, madhyama dhikari, yogi, not to you and me. Our yoga is going to come later, which is called Ashtanga yoga. So when we are in the path of paramartha and spirituality, we will be slowly climbing up the rung of consciousness. So ultimately we will come to a plane of consciousness where what is being mentioned by Patanjali here will become applicable. When we scale up to the level of Madhyama dhikari, who is called Kriya Yogi, who is proficient Jnana Yogi, Karma Yogi, Dhyana Yogi, Bhakti Yogi, who have accomplished in Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, who get designation as a yogi, at his level it is being mentioned. So when we are going on the path of Paramartha, we will be slowly climbing up the level of consciousness, and we will come to this level of consciousness where we will realize, yes, this is what is avoidable. Now what is avoidable for us is Rajo Sangha, Tamo Sangha. This is avoidable for us. Anachar, Atyachar, Mithyachar, Dambhachar. This is avoidable for us. The Rajo Vihara, Rajaguna Gunatmak Vihara, Tamoguna Vihatmak Vihara, our movements in Rajasic world and Tamasic world, this is what we have to avoid. So Ahara, Vihara, Achara, Vichara. which is of tamasic and rajasic nature, this is what we have to avoid. And then we have to take sattvic ahar vihar achar vichar. So first we have to get away from tamasic ahar vihar achar vichar, then rajasic ahar vihar achar vichar, and then embark upon sattvic ahar achar vichar. And then we will be slowly climbing up. We will be in the path of adhyatma and paramartha. So at a particular point in time, we will come to a level where we will be accomplished in Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Then we will be accomplished in specialized Jnana Yoga or specialized Karma Yoga or specialized Dhyana Yoga or specialized Bhakti Yoga. So the realities there will be different. What is avoidable then is different. See, when you are all infants, babies, even exposure to nature was avoidable. That's why we were wrapped. If we were to be taken out when we were babies, infants, we were wrapped. The parents were taking special precaution to take us out. Why? Because that exposure was to be avoided. We were not exposed to light and air, etc. We were protected. But then when we grew up, then we started moving in light and air and nature. We did not need those protections which infant needs or we needed as infants. We were wrapped so thickly so that we won't catch cold. So we are not exposed to bright light as an infant. But then when we are grown up, we will go out in the sun. So what is avoidable for a baby? That the baby is vulnerable to infections, viruses, to which when little grown up are not vulnerable. So what is avoidable to infants? All that their intake is all baby doses. Feeding. They're feeding bottles. They're feeding. There is nourishment. What is the quantum of it? It is very small quantum. What is avoided is excess of dosage. And therefore baby dosage, anything which is not baby dosage, little mega dosage is avoidable. But then when we grew up, something else became avoidable. Then further grew up, something else became avoidable. So even tender children, you don't expose them to everything in the world. You want to protect them from everything that is in the world. But then when they become adults, you can't keep them concealed. You can't keep them unexposed. They will be getting exposed. So avoidable in different stages of life was different. As a baby, we were supposed to live on milk. That too mother's milk. Then came milk. Then so many things were avoidable. For an infant, you won't be eating the delicacies that you eat because the baby cannot digest it. It is still on milk. It is still fed by breast milk. Then you don't give even the cattle's milk. But later it starts taking cattle's milk. So avoidable is what? For a baby. But then when it grows up, then something else is avoidable. Then further it grows up, something else is avoidable. So the class of avoidable Heyam is changing in our life, biological stages. So also the avoidable changes in our process of spiritual growth. So at our level, what is avoidable is dussanga. Avoid dussanga and then take satsanga. So, gradually, when we evolve in our spiritual levels, the avoidables will change. And ultimately, we come to this level of avoidables mentioned here in Patanjali's text, and that is essential avoidable. Until that time, it is all relative. Until that time, it is also relative. Now, this is avoidable, then it won't be avoidable. You don't expose your children to something which is harmful for them, but then when they grow up, they definitely take recourse to it. Then that doesn't remain avoidable. You don't show some certain things, divulge and reveal certain things to children of tender age. But when they come to age, you can't hide. You won't be able to hide those. They will realize, they will see, they will experience even. So the avoidables is relative. But now a level has been mentioned which is absolute avoidables, not relative avoidables. And that is avidya. We are not bothered about avidya. Today we are bothered about, in the spiritual path, if we are bothering about our dussanga. As I quoted earlier, rajasastu phalam dukkham. So we will have to see, we will have to identify what is that rajoguna. That we must set aside. We must wean ourselves away from rajo sanga. Prior to that, we must wean ourselves away from tamo sanga. So first comes tamo sanga. So you know what is avoidable? Tamo guna, which is coming in unlimited quantum. We'll have to curtail, we'll have to taper it, rather than straight away banishing it. Now take the instruction that came in vairagya, yataman asagnya vairagya. So gradually we'll have to increase the tamoguna company, tamoguna association, tamoguna allurements, tamoguna associations and contacts. So gradually we'll have to manage those. Then rajoguna. And then primarily we will be embracing sattva guna, satvik ahar vihar achar vichar. And then something else becomes avoidable. Then more satvik, more and more satvik as you become. The lesser satvik becomes avoidable class. Inferior satvik becomes of avoidable class. So these are all relativity, structures of relativities. Patanjali is mentioning that ultimate plane where really relativity comes to an end and absoluteness is the terrain on which yogi is standing. And for him, the absolute avoidable is being mentioned. So avidya of our form is avoidable for us. When we overcome that, then there is something else as avidya. And then we overcome that. On the next height level of our attainment, something else is avidya. Like ignorance of a baby and ignorance of a grown-up man are two different things. Where is the baby ignorant? About what the baby is ignorant. But if an adult is ignorant, where is the adult ignorant? It's all ignorance, but about what he is ignorant is different. So these are all relative concepts or structure of relativities ultimately take us to the level of absoluteness. So nowhere it is said that samsaram is avoidable for us. And that's why the saints have advice for you and me, that we have to have our paramartha in very pra-panca. We are not asked to banish the pra-panca, because we can't banish our pra-panca. What is pra-panca for us is what is around us. But the time comes where what is pra-panca is something within oneself. Now, is that not avoidable? That is certainly avoidable. The havoc of tendencies, the havoc of vasanas, the havoc of kleshas, that is definitely avoidable. But today the kleshas are not really avoidable for us. What are avoidable? Klesha vrittis, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, madhamatsariyam. These are all called klesha vrittis. The klesha vrittis are avoidable. We are not bothered by kleshas. The kleshas are actually our party packs. We are enjoying these kleshas, asmita. When our I-ness is pampered, we are happy and delighted, and that is feeling top of the world feeling. That feeling is like feeling of top of the world. But when we are sagacious, we will know that this is a maya. Not to get caught, not to get engulfed into this gratification of I-ness. So in the klesha topic, we have considered that the kleshas are only kleshas to dhikari. The kleshas are chocolates and delicacies and party food for us. The klesha vrittis are agonizing us. When it becomes unwieldy kama, unwieldy krodha. So kama, krodha, lobha, moha, madhamatsarya. When it becomes unwieldy, then it becomes avoidable class. As long as it is not unwieldy, it is not avoidable. We are carrying out our dynamics of life with the help of kama, krodha, lobha, moha, madhamatsarya. But when they become unwieldy, that is because of our purity of consciousness, we will realize that this is unwieldy. What was wielded easily, which nurtured and nourished us earlier, now we cannot put up with it. That is because of our evolvement in sattva guna. So this is not avoidable, mentioned for you and me. We have to avoid rajo sanga, tamo sanga, dussanga, asat sanga. This is what we have to avoid. But a yogi, nowhere asat sanga is in the vicinity. What has to he avoid? He has to avoid that which is avidya. And avidya definition tells us what avidya is. Anitya, shuchi, dukkha, anatmasu, nitya, shuchi, sukha, atmakhyati, avidya. We are not having problem with what is nitya and what is anitya, what is sukha and what is dukkha, and what is permanent, what is impermanent, what is atma, what is anatma is not bothering us. What is bothering us is what is pleasure and what is pain. We don't want pain, we want our pleasures. So the pain-pleasure concept idea is relative, understand. What is pain and pleasure to a child? When you were a child, toys were your pleasures. Chocolates and toffees were your pleasures. Sweets were your pleasures. Now, when you come to youth, then sensuality is your pleasure, gratifying the senses is your pleasure. The child doesn't want that sensory gratification, but a young person wants sensory gratification. The sensuality is happiness material. The child doesn't have sensuality. But when the same child is 25, 30 years old, then sensuality is the gratification. So sukham has changed. What was the sukham for 2-year baby, then 10-year baby, and now 25-year person, 30-year person? It is different. So we want to avoid our pains and we want to get our pleasures. So therefore our identification of pain and pleasure will correspond to our level of consciousness. But then something is avoidable. What is that avoidable? Dukkham is avoidable, but the form of dukkha for us is different. Then the form of dukkha mentioned here, which is parinama dukkha, tapasa dukkha, samskara dukkha, gunavritti virodhatmak dukkha. So we are given a preview when we are trading on the path of Adhyatma, Paramartha, we will come to a level where we will realize that what was pleasure was Parinama Dukkha. What was pleasure was having Tapa Dukkha. What was pleasure was having Samskara Dukkha. And what was pleasure was having Gunavrutti Virodhatmak Dukkha. And then we will certainly class them as avoidable. That is what is being mentioned. And therefore, it is summed up at the point where it is said avidya is the dukkham. Now today avidya is not bothering us. Ajnana is bothering us. Ignorance is bothering us. Avidya is not bothering us. Avidya is not ajnanam. Avidya is vasana. So, it's a klesha. And klesha is a vasana. Now, how does this avidya come about? That is the seed cause of Heyam. As I said in the last session, that we have to go to the cause, the first cause. Not only cause, but the first cause. So the first cause of the Heyam, first cause of Dukkham is Heya Hetu, the cause of that avoidable. What is that cause of that avoidable? We have to take a measure there, yogi rather, not we. Yogi has to take measure there. We don't take a measure there. We take very superfluous measures and avoid the peripheral sorrow. We don't go to the first cause of it. We don't even go to the cause of it. If there is headache, swallow a pill, get rid of it. And be free from headache until next bout of headache. If you get next bout of headache, once again swallow pill. And be free from headache until you take until you get next bout of headache. Then again there is a pill. This is how we are going about it, because we are so busy in mundanity, hecticality of mundanity, we have no time to go to the cause. But then somewhere a time comes that we have to bother about, and therefore we go for clinical, go for deeper pathology rather than clinical pathology, rather than peripheral treatment, surface treatment, some symptomatic treatment. We want a deeper treatment. So then we try to understand what is the cause of headache. Is it cervical problem, or is it acidity problem? Is it a neurological problem? Because various problems can give you headache. Eye problem can give you headache. Neck problem can give you headache. Vata problem can give you headache. Pitta problem can give you headache. Kapha problem can give you headache. We want to know what is the cause. That's the immediate cause. And in medicine, they work on that. In Ayurveda of classical times, they were going to deeper cause of it. But in modern medicine, we go to the first cause of it. Then we have clinical pathology, radiological pathology, chemical pathology. So that tells us why we have a problem. And then we try to tackle it. But there are deeper roots to problems. So the first cause, primeval cause, the first cause, primordial cause, primeval cause is what? That has to be avoided. So yogi goes to the first cause of Heyam. That is called Heya Hetu. What is the cause, first cause? Why is the avidya there? What is the first cause of avidya? Avidya is there because we are in mundanity. But then why? What is the first cause of it? The first cause, first and foremost cause is drashtru drishyayoho sanyogaha heya hetuhu. That is the first cause, absolutely first cause. Metaphysicists and metapsychologists have identified it, that this is the first cause, and a measure is taken there by a yogi. We don't take measure on our sorrows going to the first and foremost cause. We go to the immediate cause and then try to manage it. This is what we do. But yogis are not so superficial. They want to go to deeper cause, so much so that it is the first and foremost. And that is the Heyam Duh. And that is the subject matter of the next sutra. So we will be going to that in our next session. Namaskar, all of you.